3, 4, 5. You come back to your seats. If you're not there already, put your flashcards away. We will not need them for the rest of the class today. So a couple of housekeeping matters before we get underway. Remember, guys, you're not here on Friday, so if you're planning on doing extra credit is due on Thursday. So please make a note of that if you're planning on getting that done. What I want to do today in class is we're going to practice conjugating an imperfect tense verb. So go ahead and set up a chart to do a conjugation. And then after we do that conjugation, we'll translate it. And after we check that, we are going to switch gears and go back to our story. Yes, ma'am?
Did you want to bring a whiteboard for this?
For the conjugating, yeah, because I know some of you like to conjugate on whiteboard. So I wanted to let you know we're going to be doing some conjugating as well. If you would rather do it on paper, you, of course, are welcome to do so.
Wait, wouldn't that cost money, though?
Say what?
Won't the paper cost money, like taxes?
If you provide your own paper, it does not.
Oh, but if you get them up there.
It does. All right. So,
Conjugating in the imperfect tense.
yes, I'm going to tell you which one in just a little bit.
Mr. Collar.
Yes.
Isn't it a problem that I kind of can't see because this is like very funny?
We'll figure it out. Okay, so we're conjugating in the imperfect tense. Let us do our verb to order in the imperfect tense. Go ahead and conjugate and translate. If that works for you, that's fine for me. And I'll play some tunes while we work, and we'll check it in just a little bit. Okay, guys, let's take a look at what we have. We've got our verb to order, UBO, UBERI, UC, USUM. Remember, guys, in the imperfect tense, we don't use that first form at all. So that first form has no place at all in this translation. You should not see the letter O anywhere in your translation. We go straight to finding our verb stem. We get that by going to our second principal part, chopping off the RE. What's left is our stem. UBE, not UB. UBE, because remember the long E has an A sound. And remember the E gets macroned all the way through. The long, short pattern does not apply to the imperfect tense. All right. Is this a first or a second conjugation verb? Second conjugation. We know that because of the E. We then add our endings. Bombas-ba-at, bombas-batas-bad, bombas-ba-at, bombas-batas-bad. Riley, did you have a question?
What is the first conjugation again?
It would have had an A. So if it had been the verb to plow, it would have been ara.
Okay.
All right. Someone raise their hand and give me the single translation of their chart. Kate. I was ordering, you were ordering, he, she, or it was ordering. Did anybody do I used to order? Anybody do it that way?
I was going to use that one.
That's okay. Did anybody say I kept on ordering? That would have been okay as well. Did anybody say I ordered?
No.
Good, because that's perfect tense. Did anybody say I did order?
No.
Good, because that's perfect tense. Did anybody say I ordered? That's present tense. That's present tense. Be really careful. Make sure you're doing the right tense. Yes, ma'am. Have a seat, everybody. Yes. No, I used to order. Remember, for the imperfect tense, we can translate it three different ways. Was, were, verbing. I used to order, you used to order, he, she, it used to order, we used to order, y'all used to order, they used to order. We could also do used to, verb, or kept on verbing. Either one of those three would have been fine, but remember in the imperfect tense, this is considered the most common. So that's what you typically want to go with, okay? All right, questions? Okay, take out your sheet from the story that we were working on before. Yep, we just want to do one. Not today. Okay, gentlemen, does not require any talking on your part. Okay, so we did our first sentence. Yes. Did you get the endings right but the translation wrong?
No, on my
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, I remember now. Okay, so as you go through this, we are going to spend several class periods working on this, and we may work on it for a couple of days, set it down, and not come back to it until a couple of days after that. In other words, it's not uncommon for me to take 2, 3, sometimes as many as 4 weeks to get through one of these stories. So think about that for a second. As you are working on that piece of paper, could you see how over the course of 3 or 4 weeks something could happen to that paper where it's going to get a little ripped, it's going to get a little torn, you're going to make a mistake, you're going to number something wrong, something along those lines. Could you see that as happening? If that happens, it's not a problem. When I'm ready to collect this up and take it for a grade, I'm not going to say, okay, we're done, give me your paper. So Maddie, it's going to be the kind of thing where I said, okay, I'm going to collect this tomorrow. Tonight you need to make a clean copy of it. So if you made a mistake, not a problem. You could just keep working on that and then transfer that over. So think of this as like a rough draft on a piece of paper. So when you guys are writing a paper for IEW, you'll sometimes have multiple drafts, right? Okay? The other part of that is if you are absent, when you come back, one of the things that you want to make sure that you get when you're checking for notes from a classmate is like, hey, did we do any of the sentences from the story? And if you did, you want to get copies of those because you do need to get that caught up if you missed because of that. Yeah, Maddie?
I didn't number it wrong, but I could erase it right now because it's this one thing. But if I do erase it, I would
And it's okay.
I would have to highlight.
And Maddie, I want to tell you right now, just about everybody's going to have to make a second copy. There's very few people who are going to have a clean copy that they're going to be able to use when we're done with this. Yeah, Sam? Okay, great question. Because, yeah, he's a Roman. He's not alive. He's dead. That's in the past. These stories are written in what is called the historical present. So even though, yes, you're absolutely right, and I'm really glad you saw that, it is happening in the past. However, we are writing these in the historical present. So in other words, we're talking about them as though they're happening right now. Frankly, largely because you don't have enough tools in your tool set to deal with the past tense effectively enough in these situations. All right? But great observation. Yeah, Riley? Yeah, they will be different exercises. Okay, so yeah, Maddie.
So at the end of the year, you're going to take all the packets out?
No, I'm going to do them as we go.
Oh, so after we finish packet 1,
You're going to turn that in and right. The other thing too is if I'm ever out for whatever reason, like if I have to take a sick day or I've got to go drive down to see my daughter in college or something along those lines, this will typically be the assignment that you do in class. So if we're like in the middle of it, I may go ahead and assign you to do the next one, just simply because that's going to give you a lot of things to work on in class that a substitute then doesn't have to work on. Okay? Now, remember, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down the side of your paper. You should have at least 4 sets of these numbers. Whenever we are transcribing, that is copying the sentences from the book to your paper, we are always going to write the Latin on the 2s. Latin goes on the 2s. Parsing goes on the 3s. Labels go on the 1s. And then when we translate them, we'll translate them on the 4s. A lot of times I'm going to have you guys work on this independently, where you're going to have to kind of sort of do it on your own. But I am not going to require you to do translation by yourselves. We will work on the translation together. So this is going to be a parsing and labeling exercise that then segues into a translation exercise. Yes, Riley?
Should we be able to parse and label any word just because we know the steps to it?
If it's a first or second declension word. If it's not a first or second declension word, you're going to need some help, and that's where your glossary is going to come into play. Now, here's what we're going to do today, guys. I want you to finish transcribing this story. In other words, I want you to finish copying the story. Don't start just yet. I want you to hear what I have to say on this. Because there is a kind of a suggested pattern to work on this. Because what happens is a lot of times the student will do, because we've done sentence number 1, so we just got to do 2, 3, and 4, right? So a lot of times the students will jump in and they'll start working on 2. They'll copy down 2. They'll start working on 2, and then when they finish with 2, they then move on to 3. I don't want you guys to do that. Whenever we're transcribing, go ahead and copy the entire story first. And here's the reason why. Sometimes we are going to work on the parsing and labeling in class. Sometimes you are going to be doing this at home. And if you haven't finished copying the story, do you have a problem finishing writing the thing at home? You see how that's going to be an issue? Okay? So step 1, whenever we're working on this part of the exercise, step 1 is you're going to copy all of the sentences first. And then what I recommend you do on step 2, after you've copied down all the sentences, and I got a few people writing right now, so I need your attention right now, please, because I don't want you to miss this. After you've written down all of the sentences, then use the story glossary to help you with any words you don't know. Like so, for example, in this story, the first story, you probably are going to be able to figure out most of what's going on here from the endings in terms of parsing and labeling. But that last sentence is going to have some stuff that you don't necessarily recognize. So, for example, look at the 4th sentence real quick. Look at the 4th sentence real quick. You see where it says Roturius scribit, and then there's commas, or excuse me, apostrophes, and it says Decem Libri de Architectura. You guys see that? That is a great thought. So she's thinking, hey, that looks like somebody's talking. So like when we're reading stories, it says, and then George said, those colonists will pay their taxes or else, and that's in quotes. Normally when we see quotes like that, we tend to think of that as a conversation. In this instance, this is actually referring to the title of a book. And I would argue that this should have been underlined. Because when you guys are, I don't know if you've gotten into citational sources in your books yet. You're supposed to underline the titles of books. But that underline, Decem Libri de Architectura, you may have some trouble figuring out what's going on with some of those words. But the glossary is going to help you out. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to copy the sentences first. After you get the sentences copied, go through the story-specific glossary and make note of any kind of special words that are going on there. And then after you've done that, go ahead and start on your own to try and parse and label sentences 2, 3, and 4. Not translate. Hold off on the translation right now. Yeah, Liam?
I was going to ask, it says architectura,
Architectural.
Yeah, I can't find the AM.
Okay, so great question. Great question. I don't know if you heard what he said. He is looking up in the glossary. And he sees architectural, architectura. And I think they do it like that, right?
Yeah.
But in the story, it's listed as, oh, I love it, right in the middle thing. Yes. But in the story, it's listed like this. So here's what's going on with that, guys. Remember, in Latin, the words have endings that change. And what is on those endings will affect how that word is being done in the sentence. So, for example, every noun has 10 different endings, doesn't it? Every verb, you don't know this yet. Well, you may remember me telling me. I can take the 4 principal parts of a verb, and I can generate over 500 different forms from those 4 principal parts. Could you imagine how thick the dictionary would be if they had 500 entries for every verb? And even just the nouns, if we had 10 entries for every noun. And so to help us with that, they will often put what is called flashcard form or dictionary form in the book. So if it's a noun, they're just going to give you the nominative, the genitive ending, and they may tell you the gender. That's all they're going to say. And then for the verb, and in fact, I think there's a verb in here. If you look at, here they've got, you see where it says scribo, scribere. So they're not going to list all the possible forms of that verb. They're just giving you these 2 forms so you can kind of see what's going on. So what you have to do is you have to say, does this look like that's the word? Okay, if it is, now I've got to figure out what that ending is. Because it's AM, so I know it's not nominative, and I know it's not genitive. So what else could it possibly be? And then you kind of have to work your way through your list. Okay? And that, guys, is why I'm not going to have you translate on your own yet. Because the translation is often going to have some things that we aren't quite ready to do on our own yet, but I'm going to do that as a guided exercise. Yes, Ryder. Say again. All right. Other questions? Yes, ma'am. Yes. You're in debt. Oh.
The only 2 people that are not in debt.
Everybody's in debt except for Liam and Sam.
Okay, so do you normally go to Eagles Eye or do you normally come to Carpool? Carpool. How quickly does your ride get here usually? Beginning or the end? Oh, because you got band. Okay. We'll figure out something. I'll give you a way to work it off. All right, other questions? Great. So we've got about 8 minutes left. I'd like for you to work on those